Hello, hello. It's Kate Quinn from Fabricated Quilts. Hi, everybody. I'm very excited to share a template that I've never shared before, and I don't think that it's as well known as some of our other templates, and I'm really excited to get to share it with you. It's really fun. So let me grab my card so we can share it, so you can see it. I'll stick it up here. Let's see if we can adjust that view for you. Hang on just a second. If you can hear well and can see, let me know if there's any adjustments I need to make. I always want to try and give you the best view. So this is called the Flying Square, and it is designed by Leonie West. And just for clarity as we start, let's give you some details about the template itself. This right here is a 2-inch square, and although this is round right here, this is an inside curve, so it's going to make a very sharp, crisp square. It's not going to be rounded, it's going to be very square, 90-degree corners. So 2 inches, this one is 1.5, and this one is 1 inch. Thank you guys. Oh, I see some new names. Hello, Jane Moore, Jerry Lucas, Sandy Quigley. Yeah, I know this one is not that common. We're trying to provide some new inspiration for it. It's not that it's a brand new template, but we haven't explored it a lot. It's pretty cool. So we're going to play with it today. And again, we'll start with some very basic designs, just a simple design, and then we'll add a little bit more. So great. Thank you guys so much for letting me know that you can see and have a good picture. Beautiful day where I am. I hope you're enjoying a beautiful day. Even if it's cold, it can still be beautiful. Hopefully you're having a good weekend. So what I thought I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this little fabric and just show you the exact shapes. And because we haven't done this in a while, I'm going to add a lot of beginning details for new users. So we haven't really struck hard and welcomed our beginning Rulerwork users. So when I do the initial demo, I'm going to add a lot of information that might be useful for some of our newer users. Okay, I know we got some veterans out there, but it's always good to review, right? So right now, I just have a very small piece of fabric. It's enough, I think, to fit all of these shapes on there at least one time. And right now, if I lower my ruler foot, you can see that there really isn't any room underneath my foot right there. If I try to put anything under there, nothing is going to go under there. My ruler foot height is so low that I call it kissing the fabric. They're kissing. They're making contact, but it's a very gentle kiss. I can move my fabric very easily, very freely. There is no reduction of my ability to move. So that is really important. If the foot is up too high, that is the #1 cause of shredding for ruler work. What happens is then the fabric will lift up because the foot isn't holding it in place. And when it hits the foot, it'll drop the fabric off because the foot will knock it off. And there's a little action like this when that happens with every stitch if the foot is at the wrong height. When that happens, pretty soon slack will build up. There'll be some extra thread that will be introduced into the stitch every time it's knocked off the foot. And so that gathers up over time, and pretty soon you're going to have shredding and perhaps thread breakage. It's really going to impact your ability to sew smoothly. And I want to show you guys what that looks like. So right now, my foot is at the proper height for this fabric and this batting. You can see my batting is really skinny, very thin. So I'm going to raise it up really high, super high, and just show you real quick. Notice here that I can actually fit this under there. I can actually put my scissors under there. And let's pick up our bobbin thread as we usually do. Can you tell I just tried to lower my foot? Oh, so silly. I know, right? But it looks like it's up too high. It looks like it's up, right? So I'll just sew just a little bit, and I want you to watch as the fabric is bumping around. See how it's wiggly and it's bumping up and down? And that is because the needle picks up the fabric and it lifts it up, and then the foot knocks it off. And if you'll also notice, let's see if we can get you in really close. We'll get you in a little closer.
Looks a little blurry too. Yeah.
Hang on just a sec. We'll get you in a little closer. Notice how the stitch is also not very clean. It kind of hops around. Well, the reason for that is because your fabric is hopping around. So you'll see as we sew, see how the fabric is wiggling around? Right? So that is an important thing that you need to adjust when you're using your ruler foot. And this is every brand. I don't care who makes it. This is important, that height. And once you have that height adjusted to the proper height, I'll just sew a little bit here so you can see the difference. So now I'm back to my normal height, and watch how smoothly it's going to stitch. See how the fabric just stays in place because the foot's holding it, and I can make a beautiful stitch. It's nice and even. And of course, at this point, I can easily free motion with this foot on. I can do any free motion that I want. I don't have to change anything. I can just leave this foot on, which allows me to ruler work and then free motion, ruler work, free motion without changing anything. So I don't know what's on the Sew Steady site, but I am. I don't know. You said you couldn't find it. You couldn't find this information, or you couldn't find us today. So we're on there because we're definitely broadcasting from the Sew Steady site. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll talk about our little gates on here. You can see that this has multiple gates, which makes it easy to use different sizes just by switching. So just to kind of show you what that looks like, we'll just pop it off. And I have my little pull tab. I just folded the tape on one corner. And then I can just use this as a little pull tab. And I can open up my gate, and I'll just push this up a little bit so maybe it'll just fold over. I'll show you. We'll just loosen it a little. Oh, it's being ornery. There we go. I have to loosen the tape just enough to flip that back right there so I don't lose my... And we'll just stick this on here. And I think we'll do the big one first, and we'll sort of do a comparative size analysis. We'll do the biggest one first. All right. So here, we'll just put all of that right inside of our space. So we're just going to do it. I'll just kind of get to the edge. And notice here, it's going to bump stop right there. So let's go back, give you a little wider view, because that was a little too tight, I think, for most people. Okay. So Nancy Cook, I do have a bunch of circle videos. They're on my YouTube channel, so if you want to try to check those out. I've done several with some circles, so they're definitely out there. Here, the foot is right in the corner, and we'll just continue going around. And if we keep everything nice in the same spot, no shifting around, it's going to bring us exactly back, and it's going to make a really pretty square. I'll just tack this off so we can get this thread out of here and show you what that looks like. So it does make a nice shape. I mean, it's very clean if we do it right. I know that moving around is a little challenging sometimes. I know that the ruler can move around. So if you're a new user, I want you to observe how I hold the ruler. I always have some pressure on the ruler and some fingers off. Usually these two are off on either side. And I call those my speed bump or my motion detectors. If I have all of my hand on the ruler like this, then I can't figure out what's happening with the fabric because I am not touching that. So always important to have pressure on both of these so you can feel the ruler and the fabric at the same time. So that's really important. And then let's go ahead and we'll stitch some of these smaller ones. Any questions? So Honey's here today. He's helping me. He's making sure that I'm doing all the right things and helping you guys get a good view. He's also always checking if people are asking questions. He's trying to figure out what the template is or what the tool is so he can give them the information. So this tool is called the Gateway Flying Square, and it's part of the flying collection, the London collection. So let's close our gate. And there's a flying tricorn in this set, and there's the flying squares, and I think many people are already familiar with the triangles, the flying triangles that look so amazing. So I'll go ahead and I'll just put my foot down. I won't pick up my bobbin at this moment just because I just want to show you the shape. So again, a nice sharp corner right there, a 90-degree bump stop. And then I usually will pass up the corner just a little to make sure that I don't have all of my stitches connecting right there. I want to connect on the flat so that the corners will stay really nice and clean. So we'll pick that up, and then we'll just kind of scoot this over a little bit, and we'll do the smaller one. So I'll close this bottom gate, make sure that he's closed, and we'll open this one, which just is going to allow us to easily shift this down so we can get into the right spot. Oh, I got a lot of thread hanging out there. Let's see if we can grab it. I just want it out of the way. There we go. So I'll hold on to this thread when we start because otherwise I think it might shift a little. So we'll just get the foot in place. Oh, I cannot pick that up today. My fingers are butterfingers. Get it? All right, let's close that. Make sure that your tape is secure. And I can start anywhere here. You know, I can start in the corner, but it's not required. So lower the foot, set the foot right against the template, and we'll lower our needle. All right, and now we'll start stitching. I'm just holding these threads just to give me that start. Tuck it all the way into the corner, and then we'll just tack that. So let's go ahead and we'll cut all these threads, and then we can show you the different sizes just so you can get a little scale. I'll put something on there so you can see how the sizes match up. All right, and we'll just cut these threads. Lots of threads. Do you like my yellow thread? I love this thread. This is YLI 40 weight cotton machine quilting thread, YLI, and it's variegated. It's really pretty. So there's your size. So, you know, 2 fingers, this is 1.5. And this one is, you know, I guess you could put your thumb in there. It's pretty small, 1 inch. And then this one is quite a bit bigger. So let's see if we can use something for scale. What do I have? Oh, a lot of people know this is this 4-inch Spin FX number 4. This is going to sew out at 3.5. So the distance here is 1 3/4 from here to here. So you'll see, you know, this will just kind of help you scale it a little bit and get the visual. Okay, because that's something that I think a lot of us have. So obviously this would fit right inside of that. Okay, so any questions about the product initially? I'm pretty sure that Sew Steady is open tomorrow. I know it's a holiday, so honestly, I'm not sure. I'd have to check. They probably have that information on their website. If the sound is dropping, I am right next to the microphone, and it could be the internet. So literally, I'm about as close to the mic as you can get. So if there's a little adjustments, maybe you could turn your volume up, or we just are going to have to deal with it. I can't really make any adjustments on my end. What am I using? So Doreen, did you miss the beginning? We're using this template, which is called the Gateway Flying Squares. And this particular one has 3 different sizes. So they do have other flying squares, you know, they have different sizes in this whole set, but this one has the 3 different sizes all in one. And we'll try to show you some reasons, why that might be useful. We'll show you some different designs, okay? All right, so let's get some fabric out and we'll get stitching. So one of the things that I wanted to share right off the bat is dreaded math, right? You guys know me. I dread the math. No, I don't. I love geometry. I'm not that awesome at math, although I'm sufficient, but I really love the geometric aspect of rulers. And so, of course, squares are about as geometric as you can get, right? This shape right here is 2 inches. If I want to use it on the diagonal, I've got some straight lines that allow me to do that. This is the diagonal of this one, and this is the diagonal for this square. So if I line my center line up on this diagonal, what is the size of that in terms of from here to here? Any diagonal of a square, if you take the size of the square, like this one's 2 inches, and I multiply it times 1.414, I didn't make that up, that's some math genius number that's out there, that'll give you the distance of the diagonal. So this diagonal is like 2 7/8, give or take. So I could fit this diagonal in a 3-inch space if I wanted to. And so we'll just go ahead and show you that. I'm going to put my foot right here in the corner and we'll just sew this whole thing and then we'll just go along. So the diagonal is going to be a little bit different than the size of the square. So right here I have a 3-inch space, and that's why I'm giving you that information. So if you wanted to figure out what size that you needed, this is the diagonal right here. So I know that this will fit in this space. So let's put my foot right in the corner. And I think we'll turn you around so that you can see better, because I think this would not be a good view for you guys. Let's flip it. Okay, so let me show you. We'll get lined up. Maybe put the bulk of this out of your way. Like for me, I hold with my left hand. So I'm going to go ahead and line this up, line the diagonals up and the center lines, right? And just like we do with our circles, we're going to connect these. We can easily make it so that these all touch right in the corner. So we'll sew all the way around and then back to the middle. So this is pretty basic. It's not complicated. Just hold everything in place and then come back to the middle. And we're immediately ready to do the next shape. We're just going to pull this forward, tuck the foot right into that, and then line up right on the center line right here. And right here, we double stitched on the bottom of this previous square. So to create a nice even line, rather than change directions, I'm going to go this way. And that way, when I double stitch, it'll be on the opposite side, which will create really pretty, really pretty. Yeah, so I'll put a picture. I just did the math on a little piece of paper, and I'll just post that picture in the comments later. Let's see, where is it? Maybe I could just tell you the numbers real fast. Here's the picture. Right there for the diagonals. If you have 1.5, your diagonal will fit in a 2 1/4 inch. It's actually a little bit smaller, but it's bigger than 1/8. So you're going to use this. And then right here, if you have the 1-inch circle, well, the math's so easy. Look, I didn't even have to think about it. So you're going to round up to the next 1/8 because most of us quilters are using numbers not like this, but more like this. So this will fit into a 1.5 inch space for that smallest one. And I'll go ahead and take a picture of that and we'll put that out for everybody to see. So as I said, we'll go this way. So for the new people, you're not trying to go really fast. It's not a race. Just keep the foot touching. When it stops, then you can adjust and go the other direction. One thing I like to remind people is when we're changing directions as we come into a space, take an extra stitch right there and then think actively changing directions each time. You don't want to just kind of go, woo. You're not swooping around the corner. You're bump and change. So you want to be really definitive about that, and that's going to give that really sharp look right there, change directions. Okay? And then again, just pull this down, line it right up on that center line. If I hold where there are no grips, right here, then the ruler is not adequately supported and the chances of it shifting around are really high. So what I'm trying to do is compress where those grips, I don't have to be directly on top of it, but I want to activate these so that they are doing their job. So when I get a new template, put the grips on after you've played with it. Play with the template, figure out where does my hand need to go, what is comfortable, and then put the grips right under where your fingers would be. Because for me, I don't think it would be awkward to hold right here. You can see that I've adjusted that to give me a little bit more hand power, and now I can activate these grips pretty easily. Okay, so we'll go this way. Oh, right there. Make sure you widen out your hand. Otherwise you get bit by this little guy, especially if you're going fast. I was about to say that and then I did it. Crazy, huh? Power of suggestion. Okay, always let the needle finish and stop before you make any adjustments. Some machines, the needle has to sort of finish the cycle and you'll see it'll go woo right after you take your foot off of there. So wait till the needle is done and then you can make any adjustments. So let's talk about also stitch regulation. No, my machine doesn't have an electronic regulator. It has a human regulator. What I do is I have my machine set to the speed that is comfortable for me, and then I want you to press your foot control all the way. If your machine sounds ridiculously loud and crazy, like I'll see if I can do it here. Oh! You know, that generates so much anxiety, I think it's uncomfortable to sew. Let it sound like it does when you're piecing at home, like just a nice, even sound like that. And here we'll just come back this way. And we'll give that same double stitching and we'll just tack off. Okay? Now, I'm going to show you, this is kind of a little bit advanced for this next piece, but I think it's really, really fun and practical. Can you make an Argyle? Carla, you asked, could you make an Argyle design? Yes, I was actually playing with some designs, but they're too complicated to show, I think, for this event. And they require a lot of marking and manipulations. So maybe I'll try and put my picture out. We'll show a little bit of how you can do it. Maybe this will help you. Anyway, let's go ahead. We're going to open up this gate. And I want to move to this one, but I actually want to take this off because I want to make a little bit of referencing first. So we've already tacked this. I'm just going to pick my needle up and I'm going to move myself to where I want to go now. So let's scoot the fabric. What I want is this space right here, and I'm going to use the same shape that we did before. So I'm going to close this gate now that we're in the right spot. Make sure he's in good position. Now, right now I have this white line. Let's see if we can show you these lines. Okay, we have a center line here and here for this shape, and we have one here and here. If I line these up here and here, and then also on the other side, all four of these lines now are centered on the lines that we have. So I know that this is in the middle. I know that this center line should go right through there. So I don't have to do a lot of work, you know, in terms of marking something or anything in order to get this shape. So I'm just going to scoot over and put my foot right against the template. I'll put my needle down, and we're going to sew more than one time around, so that is going to be stitched in really quickly. So let's go ahead. We'll go this way. And I can do this with the other size as well. You know, I don't have to just do it with one size. So I'll double the whole stitch, because this one I'm sort of just going right back to the beginning, and we'll tack it, pick up my needle and my foot, and now we'll just scoot down to the next one. And now I can line it up right here. And same thing, getting all 4 lines aligned. And that makes sure that this shape is centered exactly where we want it. We've got this as a center line, and these are all lined up on the existing spaces. So touch your foot, put your needle in position, and now we'll sew. I call this the jump stitch method. I like this because it allows you to tack off areas and not have to cut your thread with each one. So here we'll close and we'll just tack over. So this area is secure. And notice how I didn't really stitch over this. The thread is actually on this side of that. You may end up having to pull 1 or 2 stitches out of there, but pretty convenient. So again, pick up your needle, and then we'll just come over and we'll line up again. All right, so I'm checking my lines. You know, if I need to fudge a little, I will. It's no big deal. Always tuck your foot in first and then bring it up to the edge right there. I think this tape seems a little flimsy. I might have to change him out. But let's go ahead and we'll sew this one. Actively changing directions each time. Each time you get to that corner. And we did stitch these double, and that's just going to put a little bit more emphasis on the inside. And then they'll all be the same as well, which I think is important. Okay, we've got one last one, so we'll just scoot over. Let's get these little tails out of the way. All right, so that centering feature, that's a really nice, easy reference line that we can use, which is super convenient. So again, lower your foot out of the way and then bring it against that edge of the template, and I'll just hold this tape just to make sure it's nice and sturdy. So one time around, and then we'll go again. And we'll tack it off. So I put a few tacking stitches in there, and I'm going to put my needle down right where I left off. I'm actually going to carefully position it so it's right in the stitch line exactly. Now, if I release my presser foot, my needle's already up. I have a loop in this hand. If I pull the other side of the loop, that's how I can raise that bobbin thread right there. So let me show you. This is my bobbin thread right there. And because we did all of those little tacking stitches, I can just cut all of this, move everything out of the way, and then I can clean up all of these. The bobbin thread is that gray, and if you'll see right there at the back, you can just pull him off, and he goes away. So all we have left are the little tails, and we can just cut all of those off. All of our jump stitches will have to be cut. If you were going to do any fills in this kind of a space, I would make sure to cut my jump stitches first so that I don't have a bunch of fill covering up the little tails. So I'll just flip it over so you can see what it's going to look like. It's going to look like that, right? So you would have to go through and just clip those, make sure that those are out of your way before you would do any additional fill. But all of those stitches are quite secure because we stitched over them a bunch of times, so there's no way that they're going to come out. So is this kind of like an Argyle? Whoever asked that. Rosie, I'm going to answer your question. She asked, what's the best tape to keep the gates in place? I use Scotch tape. It's pretty strong. I see why mine isn't staying though. Let me show you. I folded it back and there's not enough right here on this side to hold this gate really in place securely. So he doesn't have enough. So I probably need just a little bit of a longer piece right there. And I didn't tape the bottom. I put the stable tapes right on the grip because of how I would be holding it. I felt like that was an important place to have that piece. So let me flip this. I'll just show you the design. There's our design. We'll come out just a little bit so you can see it a little better. So this is a pretty easy shape, fortunately. I mean, you're all on the inside of the curve. There's no outside curve work. So it's really easy to hug those corners, and you have an absolute bump right at each corner. As you go in, you can't go anymore. So you'll just come until the foot hits and you'll change directions. So I do think that this would be really a fun, flexible way to do this. Let me say one more thing. So I did another design and I put a little square in here. I put the little square. Well, if this is 2 inches, this 2-inch and the 1-inch square, they'll kiss in the middle. And I felt like that was really hard to do on the go. As I went along, I felt like it was really hard. So I felt like I had more control lining up the center line by doing these after, and I feel like it looks a lot cleaner. So I would actually separate. I wouldn't try to integrate these by doing them at the same time. I tried that and I didn't feel like it worked really well. So anyway, let's go ahead. Let's show you another use for it. So here I've just got some spaces and I can make these any depth that I want. I mean, I don't have to do anything specific. I could choose any size of these right here. I am going to use my diagonal again, and maybe we'll use this one this time because we can. So I'm just going to start, this one is the longest line. You could start anywhere and then you could ditch around it and come back. I don't know that there's a big advantage to starting down here and going forward, but well, I guess we'll find out, huh? All right, so I want to put the template in, of course, and I want to try and put as much of the bulk of the template out of my way and in my left hand. Hey, honey, can you get me another piece of tape, a little bit longer piece? I do want to put a bigger piece on this. I think this guy's just not staying as well as I want. That long, thank you. All right, so what I do, I just fold this corner over, make sure that I have a nice pull tab there that won't stick, and then we'll just put this on, and I'll cover him up really good. So also going to try and make sure that this is lined up. Use your finger and just feel that. If you feel a big bump, the ruler foot's going to feel that too, but if it feels mostly straight, it's going to be fine. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get lined up, get our thread under the ruler, and we'll use our diagonal. What we're going to show on this one is we're going to do chevrons. So we've got it lined up. This is about a 30-degree angle, so I'll just start my foot here in the corner. So I've got that diagonal lined up right there. Let's see if we can make that more visible for you. There we go. I think that's better. And I can choose any side, but we're going to go this way. We're going to go in towards the body of our design. Okay, and then we would just keep going. And let's see if I can get myself lined up since I have a very limited line on this side. Hopefully that'll do it. All right, now I would be able to use this as a straight edge, and I can just move this up. Right here we can use our spacing gauge. So let's see if I can find mine. Oh, he's on my other machine, but I always have a spare, thank goodness. But he doesn't have as cool of a lanyard, but he's findable. So this is a really easy way then to ditch. So we'll just go up to the next line. And I am going to take this one off really quick. I want to show you that I want to make a little reference line. So let's open these gates. it's not that big of a deal. And I usually leave one side connected so that the gate can just flip. And if I'm traveling back and forth, I might not even need to close these gates. I'll show you that in just a second. All right, so I'm going to leave these open and just use my straight edge. What I need is I want a straight line right through the center of that peak right there. So let me get my marker. You're going to see right there, I've got this lined up on the straight, and I'm going to make a reference line this way, maybe a longer one, because we'll need at least one more. Okay? All right, and what's the purpose of this line? This line is going to help us line up our chevrons as we go. And I think we'll do one more. We'll do this one also. Let's scoot him up to that line right there. All right. So we'll just get those marks in. And that way, as we put our chevrons in, we have something to align. So because this diagonal is a weird number, you know, as we said, it's like 3 point whatever, 7, it's 8.2 whatever number. Well, you know, I can't really figure that out with the ruler. So what I like to do is put this in as the first reference line and then make these reference lines after, because then it's much easier to do it. People are like, why don't you make those before? You could have already had those in. Yes, but I would have had to guess what size they were. All right, so we'll leave our gate open. I'm going to show you why that could be really useful here. So we want to be on the diagonal, and we want this center line right there. So we're going to have to shift up a little bit. So lining up right here and on the center line, that's going to keep the peaks of these chevrons aligned. And then what do you see right here? We're not touching the ruler. So what would need to happen right there is we would have to travel in that seam until we can touch, and then we can go. And these should be lined right up. Let's see. We did good. They're perfectly aligned. We're right on the center line here, and now we can just do this next one right into our line. Okay, I think we need one more stitch there. And then we'll just finish out this. We're using this line here at the back as best we can. We can't really see anything down here. So if that bothered you, you may want to go ahead and add this line all the way down, and then you could be lining up on it, but I don't think we need it. So again, we can use this as the straight edge. We'll travel up to the next line, and we'll use our spacing gauge. Get us right in there. So we don't know exactly where we need to be yet, and you can see all my gates are open because I don't need them right now. So in order to get this lined up, it looks like we're going to have to go a little further because we're not lined up yet. So let's go ahead and we'll set up our spacing gauge to give us a little bit more length to come up a little further. And then we can adjust once we get ourselves seated. Oh, I think we went too far. That's not going to work. We'll come back. Let's see if we can get ourselves aligned just a little bit more. Well, that's tricky. You know, I don't think he wants to fit there because he would be outside of the boundary. Let's see what we can do. Where are we going to have to be? Let's scoot out of the way. I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to just scoot out of the way. And I'm going to make a mark for myself down here, because it looks like we need to get seated right there. This will help us figure it out. We can line it up on this side. And this will be where our placement is. All right, and then we'll just go like this. That was more complicated than you thought, huh? So all I did is I just flipped it over so I'd know what my travel spot would be and where I would come in. And now I can go ahead and just get myself over to that space. And that'll help us put ourselves right where we need to be. We need to be a little bit more inside. That's where those other lines might help us, right? So look, we're right where we need to be. And now we can just start going across. We'll add our next line. So what I did is I sort of pretended that I know that the space on the top and the bottom would have been the same. So that just helped me to get everybody lined up. Could I do this on a straight? Sure, absolutely. You don't have to do it on the diagonal. Let me show you where we're going to go at this point. We've got a few of these lines and kind of show you, there's our chevron. Let me flip it so we can get you a good view. And these spaces are kind of big, right? I mean, there's a lot of space in there. So I want to go ahead and I want to put some more visual interest in there. So I'm going to just do that really fast. It's really easy. We're using the relationship of the template. And we can literally line it up. And what we're looking for is this on that center line. And we want the same spacing on both sides. So for example, if I take this and I use my 1/2 inch right here, I can line it up there. And then making sure that I have the same relationship there and maybe pulling it down a little bit right there. So I think we have to scoot over a little bit. Okay, and right there, we're going to use that as a 1/4 inch. We want to create a little wider space here as we go. So we'll try and line that one right up, and then we'll just stitch along. And then we'll move over to this one. And I think we're a little bit too far. Remember, we said we want to be a 1/4 inch away. So we'll come in just a little. And now we can adjust this space on both of these sides, and we'll be able to put this on this side. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing here. Kind of get him lined up right on the top. And I can do this on either side, and if I want to move back down to the other one, I can use this same thing with the spacing gauge. I always set mine down. He just wanders off. I love that lanyard because then I don't have to look for him so often. I think we need one more stitch to get into our stitch line, and then we'll line that right up. Okay, and now we want to get that same alignment here on this one, so we'll do the same thing. We're just going to line it up. Maybe we went a little far. Remember what I said, we're looking for this 1/4 inch right here, and then we'll get this aligned, lined right up with that one. And then we'll just keep on going. And because we have different sizes, this would allow us a pretty easy ability to make, chevrons with different sizes, like make small ones on the bottom and then echo with the bigger sizes. So there's your Charlie Brown. Yeah, it's part of the Flying Bell curve template set. Yeah, exactly. So she created the flying tricorn, the flying triangle, the flying square, and the flying bell curve, which is kind of a curvy triangle. And she has an inspiration book as well. And I also know that there's some patterns that use these tools as well. So there's just a couple of ideas for how you can use them, and you definitely need that center reference line. It would have been easier to line it up here if this was longer, because that will help us. And then when you echo, you might want to go and put it in both directions like this so that these can be centered. If I had marked this center line, that would be easier to line everything up. But really, really easy to make chevrons with this, and really fun, really very fun. So let's show you another design. I got another one for you. I'm not going to lie, I didn't test this one as well. I have it in my brain. We'll see if it works out. Do you guys ever do that? You're like, I think it's going to look like this. But I believe that it will. I'm pretty sure. We'll find out. So this space right here is 3 inches. It's bigger than the design is going to be, but I'm going to create just a little pattern in here, and I'll show you how to do it as well. So we don't need all of the sizes, but we do need the 1 and the 2. So I'm going to leave this gate open until we need it, and then we'll close it when we're using it. And that'll help limit the number of times that we have to make any adjustments. So right here, we'll start right on the boundary. This is the middle, so it's 1.5 from each side, because this is a 3-inch space, but we could make it a 2-inch space if we wanted to. The thing is, if you have a 2-inch space, like you sew in a 2.5-inch strip, is it going to be exactly 2 inches always? It might be, it might not be. Sometimes they can be a little bit narrower, and I always want to be careful about making my design fit so tightly that I can't make any adjustments. The templates aren't going to change size, so if your seam allowance is a little narrower, then you run into this sewing outside of the boundary. So I try to recommend that maybe you're going to put something in that's a little bigger. Put it in a bigger space, not a bigger template. All right, so here's our first part. We'll just sew the square. We're going to stop right here in this top corner, and then we'll open up the gate so we can do the next part. So just flip your gate back, and we're going to come down to the small square, and we'll close our gate. Oh, he doesn't want to close. There we go. All right, now I need to use my spacing gauge to get lined up so he's nice and accurate, because I don't have a reference line on the bottom. So I want to make sure that he fits perfectly. Let's close both of these gates. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to put one of these guys right here. So I'm just checking, making sure that he'll fit. And let's make sure that our ruler is pulled all the way forward so we don't have any weird stitching, when we start out. We want this to follow the same line and touch, and we'll come to this corner. And now we're just going to come down here, and we'll do the same thing. Get it lined up right there. And this is just a random pattern, but it's showing you that we can use those 45-degree angles in order to make whatever pattern that we want. So let's open up this gate again. And this kind of shows you how you can move back and forth between the gates as well. Let's get this little thread out of there. All right, so we'll close this one. Make sure our tape is secure, and we'll use our same center line. So we've got this center line right here. It's lined up. And as we sew around, I don't want to risk potentially having to double stitch this line. So I'm going to sew around this way until I touch, and then I'll come back to this corner. And you can even check right here if you want to, just to make sure, like that maybe is a slight bit tighter. So maybe we'll put a little fudge in there. Okay, when your hands get too far away from you, just go ahead and bring them in a little closer, reposition. And then we'll kind of close that up and come back to this corner. So who knows what we're going to do now? Do you guys remember? It's a quiz. So we'll open this up. Just keep it right on there. It doesn't have to go anywhere. We don't even have to open up anything else. Tuck the foot right in there, and we'll close this gate. Do we have any good answers, sweetie? Anybody answer? What's next?
I don't see any.
Okay. All right, it's a quiz. Use the small one. Thank you, Sandy Gray. You're right. So we'll put the diagonal, the two little two patches will go on this side now. And again, we want to check and make sure that we're correctly parallel to the line to put our square in. and we'll touch and come out to the diagonal, and then just scoot this one out, and we'll check his spacing again and make sure that he's parallel. So you can really see how important that little spacing gauge can be for that guy. And when we close it in the center right there, we're ready for our bigger one. So we'll just open the gate again, flip that back, and we're ready to move down to the larger one. Yeah, a lot of switching. If you know me, you know I don't care. I just want to sew all day long, right? My husband would agree with that. He's like, yes, she does sew all day long. I wish she would sew a little less. All right, so again, we're going to go this way, and we'll come around to touch. And you can always do a little adjustment right here. When you check that, you can just make sure, am I going to hit that correctly? Because we don't want to be super far off. One stitch, no big deal. But a bunch of stitches, it really would show. Like if it's more than a single stitch, I think it would really, really show. And you can pull this forward, just pull that fabric just a little bit forward, and that'll let you get right into that other stitch. All right, we'll do one more. So these are going to alternate. Our little 2 patches will alternate, kind of create that little quilty look in our border. These are just very easy. This isn't a super complicated design, but it's fun. And let's make sure that we're squared up. That looks a little wonky to me. There we go. This guy back there, he looked like he was way bigger than the other one. Right along that center line, and then coming right over here and making sure this one is squared up as well. Now, if I was doing this in a border and I wanted this to be perfectly spaced, what is the key to making this design perfectly spaced? Should we do one more? We can finish it if we want to. We'll just do this last part. Oh, wow. Okay, so the math on this was pretty easy. I didn't think ahead to that, but obviously these are all multiples of 1 inch. So this is actually going to fit in there really, really nicely to finish off this design, which is kind of cool. So if it doesn't touch, you can just pull this for 1 stitch, and now he's closed, and we're done. So it's just a little crazy design, but it leaves some squares that you can fill in. And it has some fun movement to it. It kind of has a directionality, which is nice because it makes your eye follow it. So I'll just put it up here. So you can see it kind of has a little path that your eye follows, which is great because whenever we're quilting, we always want to engage the viewer and have them move their eye around. So that could be a fun way to introduce some energy for your quilt. And you can always put fills in it like this, you know, or different emphasis. And then you could always just finish that out right here on the seam. These spaces, you could ditch this, and that'll give the puff right here for this outer space. We can always fill this in, and that would really emphasize the design as well. All right, so I only have one more, and I'm frustrated because look at, it's gonna have a little pucker in there. We'll see what happens. Oh, it'll all quilt out, right? Maybe it will. This is the extend the potential of your template. I always like to have one design that you wouldn't necessarily think would fit, and that it is a way of using it that is perhaps unexpected. So my boxes are chalked. This is a 1 inch grid, and what I'm going to show you how to do is use the flying square to make bricks. And it's so easy, you'll be like, oh, wow, that's fantastic. Okay, so obviously it's 2 inch square, you know, if you have a box like that. So I do want to put this on. And I'm going to start right here at this corner, I guess. So we'll get our bobbin thread picked up. and try to get ourselves seated right in this corner. We're going to have a little fudging because of the pucker in there. It's not going to fit exactly. It's okay. We're just going to go with it. I'm going to line this up, but halfway like this. And what I want to sew is I'm going to sew this rectangle. So 2 inches tall this way and 1 inch. And we're just going to continue that all the way down. Let's see if we can position it just a little better. There we go. We'll sew right down that seam. Right when we get to the bottom, stitch across, and now come back out. And then you have a nice placement right there, and as you shift this down, we can get lined up really nicely, and we'll just continue down. Bump stop on the foot, and right down. Same thing, we'll just keep going until this is finished. And across, and we'll just keep going each time. So I might have to tug on my fabric a little bit because I'm using those reference lines in order to get me aligned. Now, once we're here, I need to make half of a brick, right? So let me get myself lined up. We have to scoot over 1 unit. Let me turn it so you can see better what I'm doing. All right, I got all these straight lines that I can use really easily. So right here, it's this line on the inside. There's actually 2, I can see that as well. But it's the inner line, and we're just gonna come right down to this center position, right here. And we're making bricks, so we want half of a brick. We don't want the whole thing, right? We just want partial. So we'll just come down, close that. And now as we line up everything, we should be able to just go back the next way. So we're keeping this centered, and this is the 1/4 inch right there, so we should be in position to just sew right down that spot, close. And we have a template already in our lineup that does bricks, but it does very tiny bricks, and I don't want to sew something that small because I am really lazy. I want it to quilt up faster. And I love the size on this. It looks awesome, and it's so easy. So then here, we'll just finish out that. And again, if I need my straight edge to go up to the next one, I can just use my spacing gauge, and I'll move up 1. And right now, let's show you what we have. We already are ready for the full brick, because there's the half, right? So it's really easy to see where you're at as far as lining things up. And then we'll just come down. And same thing, getting lined up right there, checking your spacing, and we'll just keep going. So this is going to quilt up really, really fast. And because of the size relationships with these, it's really easy to do it with either the 1 or the 2. In order to use the 1.5, the relationship for half of it is 3/4, and that would be, I think, a little challenging because there's not too many grids that have that information readily available. I'll just do 1 more row and then we'll flip it over so you can see. So we want to come up so we can literally set everybody in position right there, and we can just sew up that half. We'll get right to the middle. And then we can just scoot this down. We don't even have to adjust anything. We'll just come down and touch and back up. And we're not ending up stitching over anything. So if our lines aren't perfect, we're not worried about that because it won't matter. We're not having to stitch on top of something else. So if we're a little bit wonky, nobody cares. So, and this will be our path. We could even rotate it like this right away to get us lined up right for that next one. So we can literally use that, and we can just sew right up to the next one. All All right, I'm going to go ahead and take this off. I'll just tack it in place and cut it, and then I'll flip it over. I think it's hard to see with all the chalk, but it looks fantastic. I already did it on another piece, and it turned out so good. So you got a couple different sizes that you can use with this, and just so many different options. I already have like 10 different designs in my head, but I can't show you all of them. All right, set that down. Let's flip this over. So there's the yellow. You can kind of see it, but again, I think you can't see it as well with the chalk. So let me show you. The chalk that I used is iron off pounce, but I'm just going to grab a piece of fabric and show you something cool. This is just a piece of other scrappy fabric. So there you go, the chalk is gone. That was pretty easy, huh? So Rita, I use grids by Long Arm University. I like them because they're designed for rulers and they're pretty accurate. She's a long arm user, but they're great for domestic users too. I mean, I've been using them for probably a decade and a half, and I think they're great. So anyway, pretty fun. Don't you think that looks fantastic?
A couple people asked to see the back.
You bet. I always like to show the back. So there's all of our back. You can see there's our bricking, nice and clean, right? It looks pretty awesome and nice and big. So if you're doing a big quilt and you need something to quilt up fast, that is the bricking that I want to use because it's going to really go quickly. Honey, can you grab my pounce chalk right there and my grid as well? I think the grid is right behind you right there. I'm just going to show it. So somebody just asked me about my chalk. Okay, so I'm using Quilt Pounce by Hansi, and I'm using iron off chalk, right? So this is if you heat it, then the chalk just literally goes away. This is the same chalk that we recommend to put into your crosshair square Choco liner, because this works really great with the crosshair square, and then you can remove those lines really easily. And you saw that just even a little brushing with just a little friction with fabric will get most of the chalk off. And I encourage always trying to remove the chalk. So the thread on the back is Isacord, 40 weight polyester. I like to use 2 different colors because I think always the bright color, something that shows for the camera, and then maybe something a little bit more subtle on the back that isn't quite so in your face. I did use a pen. I used this chalk pen, Bonds and Porter. This is ceramic chalk and it is erasable. It does take a little bit more effort to get off than the pounce chalk, which I used for the grid. This is the grid. You can use any grid as long as it's accurate. It doesn't have to be this one. The thing is that I've bought many different grids and they're not all accurate. They don't all match the true measurements. So make sure that you line out the grid before you buy it. If they won't let you try it out for size, then you don't want it because they're often not accurate. So this one is pretty accurate and really helpful. And they have 2 inch, 1 inch, 1.5 inch. So those are I have all 3 of those and I love them. They're fantastic. And then let's see if we have any more questions. I also have one more chalk pencil I'll show you. I have this fat chalk pencil. If I don't need accuracy, I use this. This does erase pretty easily and it's really fat. But it's nice because it's not about having this perfect marking. This is when I just need like a reference dot or something like that. So they're great. Let's see. Yeah, you know what? Every time I get a new template, I'm like, oh, I wonder what this can do. I don't know. Can it do? And then I'm like, oh yeah, it can do everything. So the grids are from Long Arm University. And I think they're called stencil grids or something like that. All right. So thank you guys so much for being here today. I've showed you my designs that I have for the day, so I don't have any more. And if you had any last questions, I always go through the feed after.
What was that template called?
The actual template,
the actual sewing template.
The sewing template right here. Let me put my card behind it. Thank you. That way you can see it really good. This one is the Gateway Flying Squares, and it has 3 different sizes, 2 inches, 1.5 inch, and 1 inch. And I believe there's others because all of the London collection has a lot of different sizes. So, you know, if you wanted some different sizes, I'm sure you can look on there and see what they have. This is the one that they sent me for demo, so I'm having fun with it because it's cool. All right. Leave your questions if you have any. And I wanted to say congratulations. I think it was Patsy Wilkerson who won the wedding ring set from last week. It was announced on Friday, so she won set 1 of the Westalee wedding ring template, and I'm busily checking my pattern, and I want to send a shout out to one of our viewers that is helping me do some editing on it and make sure that it answers all the right questions. So thank you for that, and look for more information about that class coming soon. I had several people also ask me about feathers classes, and I know that I have several in February. They're not yet on the Sew Steady event listing, but I will be trying to share those pretty soon in the group if you are interested in that. So those should be coming up. I know I have at least 2, maybe 3, and there's 2 different feather classes that I will be sharing. So look for those coming soon, as well as other classes by all of our great educators, and have a wonderful day and happy quilting. Thank you guys so much for being here. Please like, comment, and share. It helps me a little bit. Okay, bye. Have a great day, you guys.